Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a special Wednesday night in America here on the network. Of course, I'm your host, but I'm not really a host because I'm just the one that actually has the chance to speak with my wonderful guests. And we're going to get to him right now. He is someone that I respect and admire. He has done more things on his pinky than I've done my entire life. But we'll get to that in a minute. We're going to have him do all the talking, and I just want to get all of our particulars out of the way. Today is September 15th, 2021. In the Latin world, tonight at midnight, several nations, starting from the Rio Grande on south, it's going to be the holiday. It's going to be independence in the Latin world for many nations. But that just is what it is. And I wanted to get that out of the way. We'll probably touch some historical stuff in just a moment. But ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure. For those of you that are already on the network on blogtalkradio.com, you know this man. You've heard him. You know what he does. But we're going to talk about some of the things that he's done. And who knows? He might be able to tease us with some things that we cannot reveal. But we'll see. Ladies and gentlemen, we have our wonderful guest who is also part of the network, Bob Nesoff. Good evening, Bob. How are you?
All right, Roger. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. I'm trying to hide my excitement, my exuberance. It's not every day that I get to speak to someone who has done what you've done, Bob. And in the description, I mentioned that not only are you an author, Spyder Hole. Do you kind of like the graphic that's in the background of our of our screen?
Yeah, absolutely. You've got my background over here from my kitchen.
Oh, well, on the image, yes. But in both of our images, well, you have my office here on the garage, so go figure. But ladies and gentlemen, it's going to be fun. We have some odd backgrounds, but they're human backgrounds, so we're going to be good. We're going to be enjoying the evening. As a matter of fact, as I mentioned, he is author of Spyder Hole, and not only that, he's also been a staff writer in several newspapers. He is a former Green Beret. He'll talk about his career, I'm sure, a little bit there. We're going to talk about Spyder Hole, but he has traveled the world, and he has gone to places where angels fear to tread, I'm sure. Bob will tell us whether he's actually taken fire or, maybe he's witnessed it from a distance. But he has been embedded in several events, historical events. And we're just going to get to it right now. But I guess we can start with number one. Bob, your book, your most recent book, Spyder Hole. Would you tell us a little bit about that while I put an image of it?
Well, terrific. Thank you. Spyder Hole, when Saddam Hussein was captured during the invasion of Iraq, the troops said that they caught him in a spider hole. And a spider hole is simply a hole deep enough for one human being to hide in as a sniper or just to hide from the advancing enemy. And what I did was I changed the spelling from S-P-I to S-P-Y to make it a bit different. And if you'll see, you notice on the cover of the book, there's a plume in the background indicating an atomic explosion. And the premise of the book is that the terrorists are trying to set off nuclear weapons in New York and London. The hero of the book, Dan Halevi, is a former Green Beret, I wonder why, who retired, moved to Israel, and a CIA agent friend of his recruited him to work for the Mossad so that they had a man inside. He became an active Mossad officer. And unfortunately, in New York, he had come to New York for a conference, had all the information that could have stopped the attack on 9/11, but never connected the dots. While he was there, the towers came down. He tried to resign from the Mossad. They wouldn't let him. He stayed in a desk job for a while, but he began gathering information and realized that the terrorists were back in action again, that they were going to set off these nuclear weapons. He forms what's called a ghost squad. That's a squad like 007 with James Bond. But they're all military, and they have extra legal authority. They can go in, they can do whatever's necessary, they can terminate with extreme prejudice if necessary. You have the Green Berets, the CIA from the United States, MI6, and the SAS from Britain, and the Mossad and the Sayeret Matkal from Israel, which is their version of special forces. And they're getting together now to stop the terrorists from setting off the nuclear weapons and creating a global conflict, a Holocaust. And fortunately, things happen strangely. There's a young lady who lives in California, I guess somewhere near you, Roger. She's in Beverly Hills.
Yes.
And she was a couple of years behind me in high school, bought a copy of my book, and then asked if I could send her another copy because she had somebody she thought might be interested. I sent it to her a year ago. Nothing came of it. A couple of months ago, I got an email from her that was just slugged, exciting news. She was talking to a friend of hers who was an attorney, and she happened to mention that I was coming out to California. I was meeting with somebody in Laguna Beach on another book I'm working on about a federal, nonfiction federal undercover agent who brought down Al Capone. And she told him I had written a book. He asked us if he could get a copy of it. She gave him the extra copy she had. He got excited, said he's got a client who's a movie producer. The gentleman, Lawrence Pereira, did some of the Schwarzenegger movies, The Predator and what have you.
Yes.
They looked over the book and asked if they could meet with me. So back to California. I met with them at the Four Seasons in Beverly Hills. We discussed the book for a while. And apparently they wanted it. They were so interested, they pulled out a manila folder with a contract, an agreement, and asked me to sign, which I did. Nice amount of money, more than I make in a week or a month or a year, or a couple of years. But, it's exciting. And now I understand that they are negotiating with Netflix about putting the movie on there. It would either go there or as a theatrical movie. But the caveat here is that I will get excited. I'll break open the champagne when the ink is dry on the production contract.
Yes. Wow. This is still exciting, though, Bob. Knowing that you have the opportunity to see your words, your dream up on the big screen.
It would be, or the small screen, either one.
Oh, right.
I worked on the book for years. I mean, years. I do a little bit here, a little bit there. And as you know, my wife passed away in January. But when I was working on the book and playing with it, she came over to me one day and in her sweet, dulcet tones looked at me and said, either finish the damn thing or forget about it. So I locked myself in my office, which is a converted garage. On the other side of the kitchen, we had major house construction work being done. They tore out the walls between my office and the kitchen, and they're banging and hammering and cutting and what have you. But I grew up in the city room of a couple of daily newspapers, and I learned to tune out everything. I think it took me a month and a half, 2 months. I finished the book. We broke out a bottle of champagne. The construction workers got loaded, and I had the book done.
So what do you think it took from your first thought to the final? What, 5 years, 10 years maybe?
Oh, God. When I first came up with the idea, it was many more years than that. But originally, it was being called Ransom for a Dead King. Terrorists were going to steal the King Tut treasures and hold them for ransom. And I threw that idea out. I had a great cover for it. It was a swastika with King Tut's head on it. That mask of King Tut. And I threw that out. I kept the beginning of the book and just rewrote the whole thing from start to finish over there. The beginning starts off, as you know, on a beach in Eilat, and it's a place where anybody can go. Israelis, Jews, Arabs, Christians, anybody. And there was always the unspoken understanding that nobody went after anybody over there until the terrorists decided to change that. And they caught the beachgoers in a crossfire, killed a number of people, including a young woman who was there on her honeymoon. And what they didn't know was that her husband, who got shot in the buttocks, as Tom Hanks would say, he was a Mossad agent. And that leads into things that happen further down in the book. I won't go into anything in case anybody's going to buy the book. But the interesting thing was my dentist had bought a copy of the book, and I get a call from her. She's screaming at me on the phone. You killed Shoshana. How could you kill Shoshana? I'm telling you, hey, Donna, it's a book. It's a novel. But it worked. It went well. I did a book signing one time, and another author was there, and they asked her, "How do you plan your book out?" And she went into details about how she outlines the book, and she knows from chapter to chapter exactly what's going to happen.
Wow.
And they
Yes.
came to me. I looked at the audience and I said, "I haven't got the vaguest idea." They said, "What do you mean?" I said, "I let the story tell itself. I had no idea what was going to happen until I finished writing it. I would see each thing. When I got to the end of the book, I'll be honest, I was as surprised as anybody else who was reading it because I hadn't intended the ending to be that way, but it just came as a natural thing. As you and I were in conversation, that's the way I wrote the book. And unfortunately, it came out pretty good, I guess. Amazon had it listed at 4.5 out of 5 stars.
Yes, as a matter of fact, it is. And you sent me some of the reviews. I'll see if I can get to them in a little bit. But you have two covers on Amazon, I believe. Uh,
Right. I got rid of the first publisher. He did absolutely nothing for me. Brought it to a new publisher. They came out with a red cover, which I kind of prefer, but they haven't done much of anything. But again, we've been suffering through a COVID thing, so we'll see what happens now that it's easing off.
I made the
I would,
mistake of not having the book. It's like 4 feet away from me. I have to get the book. Forgive me, Bob. I know this is bad for air, but give me a moment. It's right here. I'm going to get the book. I know you probably hear me because
I
I
can hear
have
you.
a loud voice, but yes, it's right here. I should have had that ready to go.
Yeah, that's the yellow one is the original cover.
Yes, this
Well, I
one.
see I see the lettering that you've got on the graphic here. It shows the red lettering, which is on the new cover.
Oh,
Uh,
yes.
I tightened at the suggestion of an agent. I tightened up some of the dialogue and some of the action in the book, and I think it moves a lot easier now. I'm leaving for Florida in a couple of months. I'll be down there for 3 months. I'm taking this piece of equipment with me, and I'll be working on two books. One is the true crime book that I have a contract for, and I'll split the time on that working on the sequel to Spyder Hole, which is going to be titled Shahid. Shahid, as you know, the suicide bombers.
Yes.
And the premise of that is that the terrorists are going to start blowing up their own religious buildings and what have you, the mosques, and many of the major religious locations, and they're going to try to blame it on the Israelis and the United States and the other allied countries to get the Palestinians, the Saudi Arabians, and the others up in arms and come and attack, join in a major attack against the West.
Yes. As a matter of fact, I'm not sure if they're on the back cover because I of the new version. Folks, I'm going to go to that real quick. We're going to share the screen. This is from my Amazon page. I want to let Bob, as you can tell, I purchased it, so I have the Kindle as well. We like to support the authors that spend time with us. I know you did send me one as a gift, and I thank you ever so much, but I still did purchase a Kindle version. Oh, sorry, an email shot across the screen. But this is it right here, as it says, folks. It's right here. It's really good. You should be able to find it. I looked it up. Spyder Hole, Bob Nesoff. I apologize, Bob. So it is Nesoff, and I have to come clean, Bob. For 5 years, I've been pronouncing it incorrectly.
You should see some of the bylines I've gotten in magazines and newspapers.
Well, just on the back of the first edition, Juan Gomez Jurado, author of the Moses Expedition and Contract with God, says Spyder Hole grabs and holds you from the first page. It pulls you into a dangerous and treacherous world of black ops and political intrigue. This is good old-fashioned suspense with heart-stopping twists, and should be a Hollywood movie by Paul Greengrass of The Bourne or Ridley Scott, for those of you that know him from many things, but probably most notably Black Hawk Down. But Ridley Scott has done, oh my goodness, an incredible amount of things.
Well, he's the second one who was kind enough to say that. I think on the back of the book, you'll
Yes.
see also a squib by Tom Needham, who was
Yes.
a retired two-star general who was a Green Beret. And Tom was brought. He was the officer who planned the invasion of Panama, and they made him a general. Then the president appointed him chairman of the Joint Task Force looking for MIAs in Vietnam, and the Vietnamese wouldn't deal with him because he only had 1 star. They jumped Tom over 32 other generals and gave him a 2nd star. And he went in. Unfortunately, he went through Vietnam without much problem looking for MIAs. He ended up with a lung problem from the chemicals that were being dropped in the jungles.
Yes. Wow.
But Tom also, he compared it to Indiana Jones. I guess I'm in pretty decent company there.
Actually, yes, if I may, Bob Nesoff is a gifted and experienced writer who knows his subject. His knowledge of tactics and techniques is phenomenal. The story held my attention and had me waiting for the next chapter to learn what the Mossad, CIA, and MI6 operatives were up to in their quest to block an international terror plot. It was reminiscent of actual incidents hidden under a cloak of eyes-only material. Bob Nesoff knows the subject and keeps the pace moving like an Indiana Jones movie. In fact, if Hollywood is smart, this will be made into a movie. Yes. And
it looks like Hollywood finally got smart.
Yeah, which is great news. I, for one, look forward to it, and it'll be fun. And folks, I know that we're going to be talking about this book more as we go along, but you know your material. You are a former Green Beret. So, would you tell us a little bit about your career when you were respectfully a grunt?
Not that much of a career that I can talk about, but when I was in, I had come out, back in civilian life, and they were recruiting. I applied. I was brought into Miller Field in Staten Island, and we were interviewed. And there were about 30 men in the room. I think they picked 4 or 5 of us. And I felt very honored. But when I first wore the beret, we were going back now, 1961 to 62, somewhere around there. No other unit in the American military wore a beret. What we call the straight leg generals, the non-special ops, didn't want us to have the beret because Kennedy was president, and they said they don't want to create an elite unit. President Kennedy turned around and he said they are an elite unit, and by presidential order, they may wear the Green Beret. When he was assassinated, obviously none of us were in very good mood. We're coming across the Hudson River on a ferry heading to Miller Field, and there were 4 of us just hanging over the railing watching the water go by. All of a sudden, a woman on the upper deck starts to scream, "Oh my God, oh my God, we're at war." And we figured, oh boy, that's it. We look up and she's pointing at us yelling, "The commandos are here, we're at war." And I think in kind of unison, we looked up and said, "Ladies, shut the hell up."
Yes.
My first day with the unit, what I didn't realize, I was in decent condition, but not great condition. And you're wearing fatigues, the old style fatigues and combat boots. We circled the entire Miller Field at a good pace. My stomach started to go. I cut off, went between 2 barracks, and I threw up. I waited till the line came by, and I worked my way back into the line and finished the run. Major comes over to me and says, "Sergeant, I want to congratulate you." I said, "Me, sir?" I said, "I'm the only one who threw up." He said, "Yes, but you wouldn't let the men see you." And, we had a good crew of guys. We were attuned more for a European war than we were for the jungles. Although many of our men, they came to us looking for volunteers to go to Vietnam. And I was engaged at the time, and my then fiance, later wife, said to me, "Do you want to get married or do you want to go to Vietnam?" I got married. Never made it to Vietnam. But our unit, as I said, was more attuned to a war in Europe. We had men who were from Yugoslavia, Czechoslovakia, Poland, and what have you. They could be dropped or infiltrated behind the lines, and they would speak without an accent. If you were asked where Plovchek Street was, they knew exactly where it was. And one of the corporals comes over to me, and I had bright red hair at the time, and the green beret, it looked pretty good with the red hair and the green beret.
Sure
And
enough.
he said to me, "Hey, Sarge, where the hell are we going to drop you?" I said, "That's easy. We're waiting for war with the Bronx."
That's pretty good. I
I mean,
like
that
that.
was it. Yeah, we did a lot of weapons training. Green Berets have to be cross trained. You're trained in two specialties. This way, if anybody is taken out of action, you've got somebody else who can fill in. So I was basically weapons and medic. Others were explosives. I had some explosive training. Prior years, I was in the combat engineers unit. We'd go out in the morning, build bridges, and blow them up in the afternoon. So there was a lot of good training there. A lot of good people in the unit with me. I became friendly with our commanding officer years later. After my discharge, he was discharged too. He became state treasurer of New Jersey, and I ran into him at a political dinner as a reporter. Everybody's calling him Joe. In the book, he was the Secretary of State. He's one of the few who were named in the
Oh
book.
wow. Yes.
And I could never call him Joe. To the day he died, it was Colonel. Colonel. I had that kind of respect for the man. Anyhow, that's pretty much what happened over there. My military career was nothing very spectacular, nothing to really write home about. Um, when my fiance saw me with the beret for the first time, I think her soothing words were, "Would you get that silly thing off your head?" Again, American soldiers didn't wear it. People would
No.
ask me if I was a Canadian soldier. I said, absolutely. That's why it says U.S. on my collar.
It would. Yeah. It's amazing what people notice and what they don't notice.
Yeah.
Yeah. The beret is relatively speaking. Wasn't it like in the 2000s or the 2010s when the beret became more common for regular
Yeah.
soldiers?
Yeah. They decided to make a change. The black beret was originally for the Rangers.
Yes.
Now, unless you're in a specialized unit, every trooper wears a black beret. Airborne wears a red beret. We wore the green berets, things like that. But the ironic thing is, the stink when the berets were delivered was that they were made in China.
What a shock.
Yeah,
Yeah.
surprise,
Yeah.
surprise.
Surprise, surprise, surprise.
I just
Bob.
I just bought a couple of flags for the back of my motorcycle, an American flag and a POW flag, and you know where they were made.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Yeah, it's something that as I've been involved as an activist myself. I'm a gadfly, where I try to encourage people to buy from us. Number one, you buy locally, and this isn't meant for anything other than just a conversation, folks. You buy locally. What do I mean by that? You buy in your city because the sales tax money comes back to you and it comes back to your city. That's one. Obviously, you spend your money in your state, and then after that, you spend your money in your country.
Absolutely.
Because by you spending money, your neighbor works, and they spend money, etc., etc. I cut you off, Bob.
No, that's right. I don't mind spending money on things that are made in other countries. The first time I noticed that was back in the early '60s in Washington D.C. when I picked up a souvenir and it was made in Japan. And
Oh,
I'm not sure if you're aware, but after the war, there was a big push to buy American. And
yes.
somebody happened to notice that on the back of a lot of items that were here, it was said made in USA. The Japanese created a town called USA,
Yes, I know that
and that's
story.
what it was. They noticed there were no dots after the US or A, and
Right.
USA was whether it was made in Tokyo or Yokohama, what have you, it was made in USA. And
It,
that was it. Yeah, they caught it. That was the end of USA.
my father told me that story, or shared that story with me back in the early '70s, and well, maybe middle '70s when I was a little older. But yes, one of my first memories, by the way, Bob. Just I don't think we've ever had this conversation, but one of my first memories in my entire life is the image of. Okay, I know you've seen it in movies, TV, whatever, but the Los Angeles River, the big concrete basin. This is the memory that I have growing up. See, as if I'm right there in the LA River, a little trickle of water, and there's a wire fence or gate, kind of one side is broken, maybe hanging, with a lock on it. That is my impression of Watergate. That's what I thought Watergate was. And that is one of my first memories as a child. It just goes to show you. Yeah, I'm a '69 kid, Bob.
I think I predate you by a
Just a
couple of
little,
generations.
just a little bit.
I was in Washington quite a number of years ago, and stayed for a couple of days in Watergate. And I brought an ashtray home as a
Wow.
souvenir. And my wife asked me, "Why did you do that?" I said, "Take a look. There's a microphone hidden in it," which was not true. But
That's good though. When I went to Washington back in 2007, we were there on a union activity, and we stayed at the Hilton. And people were asking, "Why are we staying at the Hilton?" I said, "Wait a minute, wasn't this where Reagan was shot?" Like, yeah, a Democratic-leaning activist union would stay at the last place where a Republican was shot, or otherwise it would have been the Watergate Hotel. I wasn't thinking about the Watergate Hotel, but as our party was driving back to the airport, I passed the Watergate, and it's a big building, of course.
it is. It is. The accommodations are very nice. The restaurant is terrific.
Yeah, it's a nice place, but no one noticed it. I was on the left side. I'm like, "Hey, that's the Watergate." I thought it was cool, but had I remembered, I would have gone there myself. But we were there we were there to meet members of Congress, talk about issues, whatever. It was in September of 2007, but my fellow coworkers and members just wanted to eat and drink. I wanted to go and see the sights, and I went out on Monday night, Bob. I walked from, and I didn't know it was uphill. So I walked from the Hilton down, I guess it's 17th, past DuPont Circle, and I passed the Eisenhower Building. And then, on the south end, I was at the White House, which was really cool. And then I swung around to the Treasury, and then I was on Pennsylvania Avenue, and I had a tiny, tiny Samsung flip phone with a camera, sending messages to the camera was this big, Bob. That's how big the screen was. And I'm taking images. Look where I'm at. And it was 9, 10 o'clock at night there. But here in Los Angeles, it was 6, 7 at night. But I remember that I still have quite a few of those pictures. But I remember being in Washington, and I had to go there, Bob. And I'm looking at the White House. Okay. I'm outside, and security's like, about 20 feet away from me. Who the hell's outside the White House at 11:30 at night? This guy. So there's a guy over there just kind of checking me out, whatever. And I look up, and I see a light in the second floor where the residence is. I was like, nah, that can't be George. It can't be. But those are the images that I have of Washington. I was only there for 5 days, but it was a blast.
I'll tell you the two biggest kicks I got in my life. Yeah. I was at one point the national representative, special agent for the Federal Criminal Investigators Association, which were all the federal agents who had arrest authority and authority to carry guns. But they couldn't come out and speak and say things because they were government employees. I was the one who was put into the maelstrom. And as a result of that, I was at the White House twice. Once I met with Nancy Reagan in a private meeting, and the other one was with George H.W. Bush. But I've got to tell you, the biggest kick in the world is getting into a taxi and saying, "White House, please."
Oh, I bet.
Get there, you get to the gate, and I had a camera with me in an attaché case. Had to take it out, had to shoot off a picture so they knew there wasn't a gun inside. Walk up to the gate at the West Wing, and there's a Marine Guard there. We used to call them seagoing bellhops.
Yeah, but it's pretty good.
He snaps to attention, and he salutes. And I'm looking around to see who's with me. Then I realize he's saluting me. Wow. I go, oh, my God. You puff up, walk in. I'm sitting down with some ambassador who was waiting to meet with President Reagan at the time because H.W. was the vice president.
Yes.
And the next time I was there, again, went through the same thing, but they took us through a different door. We walked around through the Rose Garden area, outside the window of the Oval Office, then inside. And I said to the girl, nobody's in the Oval Office. I want to go and sit down behind the desk and take a picture. And she looked at me and said, ain't going to happen.
That still took nerve, Bob.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
So we ended up in the diplomatic reception room where we met with Nancy.
That's nervy, man.
Well, a friend of ours under Reagan became a deputy assistant secretary of state. My wife and I were in Washington, and we decided we'll go to the State Department building and visit him. He was so excited that somebody from home came up that he took us on a tour of the building. The top floor of the State Department building is a huge ballroom. When they have a reception that's too big for the White House, they have it up there. But we were sitting in a room waiting for something. And I take a look. I used to collect miniature cannons, which I don't know where they are now. But there's a small salute cannon sitting there, and I take a look at it, and there's a little plaque attached, and apparently this was one of the cannons used to salute Lafayette when he came to the United States. I'm looking at it, and my wife looks at me and says, don't even think about it.
That's pretty good. Bob, that's awesome. I'm sure there's more. I want to share. My brother, I didn't realize we were starting to get some comments, folks, and I apologize. This is my brother, Luis Noriega, and I know that he doesn't type the questions. He does the voice record, so there are errors in it, but he's basically asking, this was a while ago when you said you were cross-trained. Could you describe some of the weapons that you were cross-trained or that you would use?
The weapons that we were using in those days were far different now than they are now.
Yes.
The M1 was still the same, the basic weapon. It carried 8 rounds plus 1 in the magazine, and if you weren't careful, the bolt would slam on your thumb as you were loading it. I've seen guys walk around with like this with the rifle hanging off their thumbs. We used to call it M1 thumb. The weapon I carried that I enjoyed most was the the carbine, the M1 carbine. It's a 30 caliber. It was light, it was maneuverable, and they had some. We didn't use the automatics. Some of them had a switch that you could throw it to automatic or semi-automatic. I preferred the semi-automatic because I could more control where the shots were going. We had a range at Fort Tilden on Long Island where we could go train. I was somehow or other, I ended up as the range officer. And I enjoyed that because after I got done qualifying the officers, I could sit there and shoot for a while as long as the ammunition lasted.
Yes.
And the one thing I had wanted, there was a trophy. We were there for competition one time, and I was representing my group. The trophy stood about 3 feet tall, and I kept looking at it and looking at it. I wanted to take that home so badly you couldn't believe it. I was a staff sergeant. Some old master sergeant beat me out by a couple of points and walked off with it with a grin on his face. I was thinking maybe I can mug him. He's not a Green Beret. Maybe I can take him down. I guess one of the biggest kicks I had was after I was in Special Forces. I figured I'm going to come back and say hello to some of the guys from my old unit. And I'm walking across the post, and there was some soldiers in formation. All I hear, but you got to remember, back in those days, we weren't really known. People didn't know it, but I hear the others say, "Look, a Green Beret, a Green Beret," and it made me straighten up and walk a little bit straighter.
Yes. Oh, I bet. It's people to this day don't really know, and I want to ask you in a moment because I looked up Fort Tilden. It's not there anymore. It's a park now, right?
It's a park now. Yeah, I was there. It broke my heart. The only buildings left are some of the brick buildings, and one that was the base commandant's office. There was at one point a fenced-off area that was the missile base. Nobody was allowed in there, no matter who you are, unless you were part of the missile unit.
It shows it on Google. I'm going to go there real quick, if you don't mind, while you describe it to us. Check this out. It's there. Look, there it is. The Nike missile launch site, I guess. Yeah. Wow, and that's all that's left of it. Graffiti covered, of course.
Yeah, I used to have my men, before I was in Special Forces, I was stationed at Tilden for a while. And I'd go looking for my men, and they'd be hiding in the World War II bunkers. And
is that what these are? The batteries? Battery Harris West?
But that's probably what it was. Well,
Oh,
they were bunkers where they had ammo and where the guns would be hidden, so that they wouldn't be seen from the air or the sea, and they could, fortunately, they never had to fire anything in anger. But
right.
one of the guys, I pulled him out of a bunker. He said, "Sergeant, how the hell did you find me?" I said, "You forgot. I was a private here long before you came around. I found places to hide that you haven't seen yet."
Yeah. My brother comments that here in Southern California that there's the Nike base north of Fort MacArthur in San Pedro. And a little bit of trivia: there's actually a facility up in the Santa Monica Mountains, kind of north of Los Angeles, south of the San Fernando Valley. That if you follow a trail, the facility is still there, of course, abandoned,
Yeah,
but that one is as close as you can get because it's they you weren't allowed to go up there, but they have the trails that lead up there now, and you can go. I had no idea until the 1990s when it became public that we had Nike batteries.
oh, they were all over the place because
Yeah,
they were scattered around the major metropolitan areas that would have been targets. My brother, when he was was stationed at a Nike base in, I guess, about 20 minutes from where I live right now, on the top of well, they called it a mountain. It's more like a hill with a land condition.
sure.
But they, you'd go up a winding road up to the gate over there, and he was there with the Nike base. My wife and I had dropped him off one night, and Sandy and I were heading back down the mountain when this big buck came walking in front of my car, and I was carrying at the time. And I reached for it, and she looked at me and says, "Are you out of your blank mind?"
Yeah.
She figured if they heard a gunshot up at the Nike base, they would have come down like, a landslide looking for who was shooting.
Oh
So
yeah.
the buck got to live another day, and
Uh,
I didn't get arrested for poaching.
which is which is awesome. I know in Alaska it's pretty bad if you shoot a moose or whatever it is and you don't dispose of it properly.
Yeah.
It's a felony up there. I understand.
Well, this wasn't even disposing it properly. This was number one. It was a non-hunting area. It was a
Okay.
nice, basically on the top of a park.
Yeah.
It wasn't in season, and they really frowned upon people firing off guns in those areas.
Oh yeah. I'm sure it would get people jittery. An air defense battery
Yeah,
and shots with the.
it's
Oh yeah, yeah. That they're. Oh yeah, they'd be swarming.
yeah, it's now a horse stable. I took my granddaughter horseback riding there one day.
Yeah. Wow.
But I mean, you go around almost in New York, Chicago, L.A.,
Yes.
probably Galveston, what have you. You'll find that there were bases around there. Galveston, anything coming in from Cuba or anywhere. Um, they wanted to make sure that we were protected. Look, World War II. Two things with the Japanese that most people don't know. They were sending incendiary balloons
Yes, they were.
over, and a number of them landed in Washington State. Started small fires, nothing seriously, but the Japanese fleet that attacked Pearl Harbor had orders to continue on and attack California. Fortunately, the admirals over there figured, they're not going to do it. They were concerned that they would be too far from supply lines, and I think it was Yamamoto. I think in the beginning of the book you'll see he's quoted where he said, "I fear that we've awoken a sleeping tiger."
Yes.
And that's exactly what happened. The anti-gun people laugh at the idea that so many Americans have firearms. I have a collection. I'm not about to shoot anybody, but
Uh,
one of the reasons that they didn't attack us was because they said there's a gun behind every door in the United States.
yeah.
There was a
Which
movie
guy was
called
that?
Red Dawn that
Oh
showed that
yes, sir.
very well, very well.
Yes. Have just out of curiosity, have you seen the newest version of Red Dawn? I
I
have not.
didn't know there
Oh,
was one.
there's a remake. I'm not even nothing against them, but for me, Red Dawn, that one holds a special place in my heart. That one, I was 15 years old, and my brother, no less, who was commenting, took me to see that movie back in 1984. I remember that, and for us, it even hit home because in our youth. There's my brother and I, who were born here in the United States in the middle 80s, about the time Red Dawn, before Gorbachev. All of a sudden, you started seeing in Baja California, Tijuana, Rosarito. We had a house down in Rosarito. And you started seeing the PSUM with the hammer and the sickle. And it was starting to get up there. Thank goodness Mexico came to its senses and ended that.
I'm glad. I'm glad. My brother holds Mexican citizenship. He was born in Mexico City.
Wow.
My youngest brother. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anytime he annoyed us, we told him we were going to send him back.
Yes. Well, my brother, and I'm still in high school, said, "Hey, if things go bad, we're going over." And I'm like, "Yeah, you bet we are." I look back and say, "What the hell was I thinking?"
No, you were thinking right, because that's what aggressors don't realize about the United States. Look, forget about that S storm coming out of Kabul recently. That was the most embarrassing thing going, because we left Americans there, we left Afghans there who are going to be killed by the Taliban. But what the Germans, the Italian fascists, the Japanese didn't understand is that no matter how divided the United States is, when push comes to shove, we're one country, and you can't defeat us because of that.
Yes, sir. I wholeheartedly agree. I do. It is. I'm going to upload an image, Bob, and I think you know which one it is. And I didn't have the chance to live. My brother did, but it affected me. But when I saw the image, I knew exactly what it was, and it just broke my. I was angry, Bob, when that was going on, and I was embarrassed. It was sad, and my brother says he agrees on part two. I think he's talking about the movie, but It's gonna take me a moment. I'm trying to get that image up right now. I'm trying to do the setup, and I can't find the image, but here we go.
9/11.
No, sir. But we could talk about that one if you like. But it's about Kabul. It's right where we were, and I think you know which image it is that I'm going to pull up right now, and it's back. Well, it's one on top of the other, so you know which one it is.
Yeah. I have nightmares about those people climbing on the planes as they were taking off and then falling to their death. That's how desperate they were.
Yes, I saw that image, and even though I was well, actually, I take it back. I was alive for that. That was in '75. It was so. I'm not saying we came full circle, but I mean, I guess we have, Bob, seen that again.
We have, I don't know who is strong enough to come in as president and really straighten things out. We lost a lot of our allies in the last presidency. We're losing more in the current presidency. We need somebody who can not only bring this country together, but can regain the respect. Not that many years ago, Britain refused to work with our CIA because a couple of the politicians who got information made it public. There you go. Look at that. I mean, that's unreal. They were racing the plane down the runway. People were climbing up on the side of the plane and then falling to their death as it took off. What a shame. What an absolute embarrassment.
It is just an embarrassment.
First of all, look, I was only a sergeant. The generals didn't consult me when they were making plans. But even I know that you don't telegraph the enemy, and the Taliban was definitely an enemy. You don't telegraph them, we're leaving hard and fast such and such a date, because they came on like gangbusters, knowing that we were going and we were not going to change our mind. We should have started getting Americans and Afghans who worked for us out of the country well before that August 31st deadline.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, 9/11 deadline. Of all the ironic things, a 9/11 deadline.
Yeah. Yeah, it was shattering to me. I didn't understand how we got caught in this. you leave it to our boys, and I don't mean that disrespectfully, Bob. I think you know what I mean. We leave it to our men out there to to get out in strength. You cover them as you get out. And
Absolutely.
we left so much equipment, so much material. I mean, look, forgive me. I'm going to lose a lot of my audience right now because the reality is a lot of our equipment is a tad too sophisticated for them. Second, a lot of our equipment is a tad too sophisticated that needs a lot of attention. and,
Well,
and it gets beat up out there in the desert, the mountains, and stuff, and it's not going to fly. Ask the Iranians with the F-14. It requires a lot of attention.
yeah, but
And
until they break down, they've got themselves one heck of a supply of weapons and vehicles.
well, the vehicles, the MRAPs, the guns, all that stuff, it's going to be there. I mean that stuff's made to last. If they know how to clean them, those rifles, hundreds of thousands of rifles were left behind. It was
Yep, ammunition, weapons,
Oh,
explosives.
and the night vision gear.
Yep.
That is the tech. We're effed right there. That was
See,
horrible.
should have all been planned months in advance. If you knew that you were going to have everybody out by X date, all of that stuff. Look, how hard is it to pour? You're not going to take the vehicles with you. How hard is it to pour sugar into the gas tank, or to plug the barrels of the guns, or to pour concrete into the cannons? There was no planning on this. There was a decision. We're going to be out by such and such a date. Let's run like hell. Get as many planes in there as you can. Whoever gets left behind, tough.
Yeah, it was a disaster. And,
You
and,
know,
and ladies and gentlemen, I apologize. It was not meant to be a commentary on that, because we are interviewing Bob and everything that he's done and everything that he's witnessed. But I just thought it was appropriate because he has seen those images. He lived them, and he was in the service. I did a program that night, Bob, on Sunday night. I was angry. I was emotional, and I reached out to everyone saying, look, for our soldiers, for our men and women that went over there, they're the ones that are questioning even more
that's
than
right.
everyone
And
else.
there were scores of generals and admirals who were very unhappy with the way things were handled. But because they're active military, they can't say anything. Look, I was a sergeant, but I've got a good friend who's a major general. And boy, do I get stuff from him about this. I won't use the word to describe what happened over there, but the second word is up. And the first word, I think, it begins with an F. There was no planning. They didn't really consult with the troops on the ground, with the officers on the ground, and they just went ahead and ran it right through.
Yeah, some people call it a CF, right? A cluster.
Yeah, that's the other word I was thinking of, or
Yeah.
an S
Uh,
storm.
yes. Bob, I respect you where I will not use a language. We have no requirement here. There's no FCC. You may say whatever you'd like, any comment, everything. Um,
Are you sure of that?
yes, sir. Yes, I'm certain. You're more than welcome. Be as up.
Don't call me sir.
I respect you. That's my problem.
No, you see, well, we used to say, you call an officer sir. He would say, don't call me sir. I work for a living.
Oh, I use that one all the time, Bob. Bob, I've read a great deal. I've read William L. Shire, The Sinking of the Bismarck, The Story of World War II, Kagan, The Story of World War. If I don't want to say I have a specialty, but I have a vice, for lack of a better word, where I read a great deal of history. But my expertise is, I didn't want to say that. It's 1931 through 1946. And specifically, if I choose one or the other, it would be the Pacific Theater of War. Hence, volunteer in training aboard the USS Iowa. Um, I have written, Bob, eight reports on the Battle of Midway. I know it just a little bit. So when the movie debuted a year ago, I said, "Hey, this is my movie. I think that I could have a little bit to do." Did you see the movie, Bob?
No, I did not.
Okay, it is a Hollywood movie, Bob, and there are errors, significant errors.
Oh
But
my
I
God, aren't there always?
but I have to tell you that there were smart people involved, and the production people paid attention. This movie, in my humble opinion, had I been involved, the movie would have been about 4 to 5 minutes long. That's all.
You you
That's
have
it.
you have no idea of the errors. First off, when they made the movie about D-Day, they didn't shoot on the beaches at D-Day because they didn't think it looked good. They shot in another country.
Oh,
Things like that. I enjoy watching the History Channel on television, and I'd go to the movies with Sandy, and we'd see a military-oriented movie, and I'd be sitting there criticizing things that were going on. She
oh,
says, "Can't you just enjoy the movie?" I said, "I can enjoy it, but it annoys me when I see things that are factually wrong." The History Channel, when it comes down to military, they don't know their ass from their elbow.
I agree,
Um,
sir.
they
There
they
are.
have they have officers wearing the shoddiest looking uniforms,
Mhm.
uh, with a emblem on the hat that's British, but yet they're supposed to be Americans. They have a sergeant, an army sergeant from World War II with inverted chevrons. But the worst thing I ever saw was they're showing a combat scene supposedly from World War II. You ready for this? One of the guys is carrying a muzzle loader. Come on. I wrote them a letter. I said, "Hey guys, don't you do any freaking research?" They didn't answer. Of course, they didn't answer.
Of course not. Uh, when the History Channel started out, and I had a chance to take a look at some of the stuff, I, who know nothing, Bob, when I was watching a documentary on the sinking of the Bismarck, I know it well enough that they started to mention them. Like, hey, wait, no, that's not right. And I found in the History Channel's documentary, The Sink of the Bismarck, if I remember correctly, there were four significant errors that, if you follow
That's
the
all.
conclusion, well, significant. There were others. And I'm sure there are other events that I don't pretend to know about, but I watch them. But my brother commented a moment ago that there are two Midway movies, and yes, we did go see both: the Charlton Heston movie and the one recently. Bob, all kidding aside, um, this movie might be worth your time, the last Midway one. But there are things I will tell you. This was one of the most glaring things. Enterprise and Hornet arrived to see Lexington sinking. Like, oh my God. No. No. It was physically impossible. Yes, the Doolittle raid, again, for Hollywood purposes, the way they execute, fine, but the Doolittle raid was actually very well done.
Well, that was 30
For
seconds
that
over.
portion.
30
Yes,
seconds
sir.
over Tokyo.
I tell people, I remind everyone, folks, April 18th, there are two significant events in American history on April 18th: the ride of Paul Revere and the Doolittle raid. And they were both, for lack of a better word, blows for freedom. They were.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you can't do that today. You'll pardon me for getting into politics, but with people like Ilhan Omar, Ocasio-Cortez in New York, she went to a $35,000 a pop gala at the Met the other night,
Yeah.
wearing an expensive dress, and on the back in red letters it said "Tax the Rich."
Oh, yes. Yeah. I
Okay.
saw that.
Well, my question is, who paid for her $35,000 ticket?
Someone did.
That never came out.
I wonder who
Didn't
it
come
was,
out. No, she wants to tax the rich, but yet she's one of the most expensive galas going.
which is rather ironic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, for a
And
former bartender, she probably figured it was somebody leaving her a tip.
oh, that's funny. That's good. Hey, Bob, all's fair in love and war here. I do want to tell. Um, I usually don't engage people deliberately. I'm in a foul mood or something when I do, and I try not to. But I know that when it comes to you and I have witnessed I read your posts, Bob, whenever I have a chance, And I've noticed that we do have a little bit of daylight, but of the differences between us, but we're still on the
That's
same
that,
page.
that's
Oh,
what the United States is.
it's supposed to be that way. And I respect and admire what you've done, and we're still going to get into that further. I know that you support regularly. You have posts. And forgive me, folks. I mean, this is the gentleman that we're discussing. I know that you put posts on supporting the Thin Blue Line. A lot of
Absolutely.
people, and you do it often. And I, it's disappointing to me because, and now I'm talking about myself so much, and I apologize, but my last president that I probably had an affinity for was Herbert Walker, believe it or not, Herbert Walker Bush, because I felt he was the last one to actually try to make deals, to try to get stuff. Right or wrong, Bob, I know that you have a different opinion. I would assume you have a different opinion, but the way I see it is deals were still done under him, and
Yeah,
they
but
were decent deals.
look at it this way, Roger. New York City. Take New York City.
Yes, sir.
There are 35,000 sworn policemen in New York City. Okay, if 100 of them are bad cops, what's the percentage?
Oh,
You can't condemn. You couldn't condemn the entire U.S. military because of Lieutenant Talley. Okay, he was the one who killed the civilians in the hoochers in Vietnam.
that was May Lai, correct?
That's My Lai. That's correct.
My Lai.
But
I apologize.
he was an individual. There's a SEAL, a master sergeant, whatever their rank is, Master Chief SEAL. They wanted to take his trident away because he supposedly tortured somebody or whatever. You know, that doesn't tarnish. It does, but it shouldn't tarnish the entire SEAL nation. Um, there was something going on in the prison with prisoners in Vietnam, where they had one of them stripped down naked and what have you, and there's a woman there. That pales in comparison to what they've done to our people. Ask Danny Pearl's family how they felt about it, having his head cut off and streamed internationally.
As a matter of fact, for those that know and don't know, I believe Danny Pearl was a reporter.
He was.
Who was in a foreign state, and he was taken hostage, and he was killed.
He was beheaded. Yeah.
I'm sorry. You're right. Yes. You folks, you should look it up. You should know. You need to know. It's important. And let's see. My brother comments that he doesn't like the History Channel anymore. Yes, you're right. August, not a mention of what happened. Back in Japan in August. You would think that there'd be some comment, but it things I don't understand. It's revisionist history, Bob.
Revisions. I went to the United Nations in New York a number of years ago. There was a huge exhibit. As you're walking through it, I was invited to a reception there, and we walked through the halls. A huge exhibit on the after effects in Hiroshima and Nagasaki after the bombs were dropped. I didn't see anything about the people on the Arizona, the people who were killed sleeping in the barracks.
Wake Island. What they
sorry?
did to Wake Island. What they did to our soldiers right there. The Navy boys and the
Bataan Death March.
And the Bataan Death March. Yes. Not a word.
They had their own people convinced, and the women convinced that if the Americans took over, they were going to rape their children and kill all the men. And there was one, I forgot which island it was, where the women and kids jumped off a cliff and killed themselves because they were so brainwashed.
I'm not sure if that was Guam or Saipan, but yes, it was near the Marianas Turkey Shoot. Yes, yeah. Nagumo was caught on that island, and he took his own life. But yes, you're right. I think it's on Guam, and right now that cliff, there's still something that happens there on that day to commemorate that.
Yeah, it should be a stupidity holiday. my my brand new grandson. No, I'm sorry. Yeah, grandson-in-law. He just married my granddaughter. Just got out of 4 years with the Air Force. He was stationed in Guam. Apparently, things have changed pretty much over there. They were moved out of Guam when a hurricane was coming in. They sent him to a very bad duty station, Honolulu.
Oh, very good.
Hey,
Oh,
I haven't stopped teasing him yet. I've told him that his 4 years was so fast I could do them all over again.
that's pretty good. Yes. I had a client last year who was in Guam, and just for a little bit of trivia, folks, for those that know and don't know, we were doing the conversation. We were doing the tax return for the young lady who was in service, and for those of you that know and don't know, Guam is ahead of us, time wise, hour wise, everything. So when I was doing the return, it was the morning here, but it was afternoon there, and I sarcastically did the return. I'm like, okay, well, you're signing it tomorrow, my time, where I'm transmitting. So I actually filed the return with tomorrow's date where she was, and I signed it today, my date, and it was actually accepted. It's kind of funny.
You got to be careful. I'm leaving the country next month.
Yeah.
Going to Tel Aviv, and I've got a couple of assignments there to do some interviews for a newspaper. And I'm going from there to England to spend some time with some friends. Unfortunately, he's got dementia and he's wheelchair bound. I want to see him while I can, but I didn't realize I had arranged for my pickup on October 6th, which is when I'm landing in Tel Aviv. But I'm leaving here on October
Oh.
5th.
Yeah.
I had to call quickly and make sure that, I had the driver coming for me.
That was good.
I'll tell you, people around the world don't understand things like this. Sandy and I were in South Africa, and we had stayed down in the Oudtshoorn area at the safari ostrich farm, and the children of the owners were talking to us about the United States. They could not comprehend what we meant when we said time zones, that the United States has 4 time zones. South Africa has 1 time zone.
Yeah.
And it's difficult to explain to them that if you're in New York at 9 o'clock in the morning, a lot of people in California still haven't gotten out of bed yet.
Yeah, they don't. I think, what is it? Russia has 8 or 11 time zones. And I think China only has 1 time zone, which is kind of odd.
I'm not sure. We were in China. Yeah, I think you're right, because I don't remember. I normally change my watch.
Right.
And we started in Beijing and ended up in Hong Kong, and I don't remember ever changing my watch.
Yeah, that one threw me. China only has 1 time zone, and then North Korea's is off by some whatever.
Yeah, well, you're right. North Korea's off.
Yes, sir, it is. By the way, I do have to tell you that when that little punk was threatening the United States, and you'll either agree or disagree with me. And again, folks, sorry for the political bent, but screw it. When he threatened to light up Guam or light anyone up, the former president, Donald Trump, responded, and he said, "You do it, and I will light you up the lights the world has never seen. There, I will rain fire and everything upon you." And I'm paraphrasing. He obviously said it much better. And I have to tell you that when he did that, I was stunned. I had never heard an American president speak in such a manner. But he pretty much told him, "Go ahead, you little
putz,
and I will destroy you." I had never heard an American president say that. And I remember that I wasn't concerned by it. As a matter of fact, I was good. Whether you agree with the individual or not, I remember that little punk had his good. I was very happy that he stood up to him and said, "All right, you're going to light up Guam? No problem. You ain't going to exist."
Well, I tell you, my beret still fits. The rest of the uniforms don't. But if anything like that ever happened, I really think that even at my age, I would be in the front of the line looking to get back into it. You don't mess with our country. I'm trying to remember now who it was. He was a Democrat. and somebody was knocking one of the Republican presidents, and maybe not Al Gore, possibly, I don't remember. And the comment was, he's still our president and don't talk that way. That's what I said before. When push comes to shove, Americans stick together.
Were you talking about the election in 2008 when McCain defended candidate Obama? He said, "Don't talk to he's
That
an
might
American."
have been what it was. Yeah, I don't remember. Hey, I'm getting old.
Oh, yeah, your mind is very active, Bob. You were in Special Forces, Green Berets. Will you explain to me and to the listening audience what is the difference between a Ranger and a Green Beret?
Okay, Rangers are more of an assault force.
Right.
Most people, when they think of special operations, they think of the Navy SEALs.
Yes.
My friend, the general, came out with a comment to me one time. He says, the main difference between the SEALs and the Green Berets is we don't have a public relations department. But the missions are completely different, and people don't understand that. The Navy SEALs are not an assault force, but they are terrific at things where they've gone in to rescue hostages and things like that. I mean, they're top notch. The Rangers, you have to get a crew to launch an assault, climb a cliff, take a military base. They're great at that. A lot of Green Berets are also Ranger qualified. I'm not. The Green Berets are not an assault force. The main purpose of the Green Berets is to infiltrate behind enemy lines, either on the ground, by water, or with a parachute jump, and start organizing the resistance. Help them set up everything from sanitation in villages to setting up, who's going to be the village chief and what have you. Not trying to teach them elections and our form of democracy, but something so that you had a cohesive unit. They would come in if you're a good medic, you'd be in there helping set up for people who were sick and injured, show them how to treat the people and what have you. Weapons men would come in and teach them weapons. Explosive people would take the resistance and show them how to do explosives, blow up bridges, trains, ammo depots, oil storage units, and things like that. And the Green Berets would go along with it. When they were attacked, then they became a major combat unit. A friend of mine who was not a Green Beret but was assigned to a Green Beret unit in Vietnam was there when the VC attacked, and he said, it didn't matter what you were, what your specialty was, you were a rifleman. Those are the major differences.
I appreciate it. That's good to know. I'm glad you clarified that for me. I know a little bit about the Army, of course, everything in the Pacific Theater, and of course over in some events about December of 1944, stuff like that. I know just a little bit about that over there. Bob, you've worked for 2 weekly newspapers. You have more than 40
daily newspapers.
2 daily. I apologize. Yes, you've won more than 40 writing awards, and I have a picture of that. I'm going to get to in a moment, which you've given me. Thank you. You're a past president of the North Jersey Press Association and the Working Press Association of New Jersey.
That's
You're the
correct.
first national president of the North American Travel Journalists Association, former board member of the Eastern Ski Writers Association. You've been on 2020 with Geraldo Rivera. You were invited to the White House twice. You mentioned the one with Nancy Reagan, and then with George Herbert Walker Bush.
Yep.
Would you regale us with that?
Well,
if you don't mind.
Bush was one of my biggest disappointments, unfortunately. I got a call from a friend of mine before Reagan was elected. I got a call from a friend of mine who was a congressman, and he asked me if I would be interested in handling a presidential campaign in New Jersey. I said, "Are you kidding? Of course I would. Who's the candidate?" He said, "Bush." I said, "Great. He's my candidate." He said, "All right, hang in there. You'll get a call in a day or two from somebody from Bush's campaign." 2 days later, I get a call from one of his coordinators. He said, "Congressman Hollenbeck has recommended you. Are you interested?" I said, "Absolutely." He said, "Okay, don't do anything. We've got a couple of things in the works. We'll get back to you very shortly. A couple of days later, he's dropped out of the race and endorsed Reagan.
Oh,
So
it was then, huh?
you sit there watching it just slide through your fingers.
Yeah, no kidding. The man that referred to it as voodoo economics.
Yeah, yeah.
And I forget what is the nickname that Nancy had for him.
Oh, for Bush?
Yeah, I think it was like Scrawny or Screechy. I forget.
I don't know. Hey,
Yeah.
the man was a fighter pilot.
Yes.
He got shot down. I
Served
have
his
to
country.
respect that.
He volunteered. Yes,
Yep.
he did.
Yep.
Now
He volunteered. Kennedy volunteered.
Yes.
I don't think we've had anybody since then who did.
I don't think so. Well, W did National Guard duty.
Yeah, sort of.
Uh-huh. Yeah, sort of. That's what.
He missed most of his drills.
Right.
The biggest combat he had was when he landed on the aircraft carrier, got out in a flight suit, and said, "Major combat operations have ended." It kind of reminded me of Michael Dukakis when he was running for president.
I remember that.
A National Guard tank rolls in, and Dukakis pops up out of the top hatch wearing a helmet, and the assembled press peed in their pants laughing.
Yeah. That wasn't the image that did him in my humble opinion. I've studied presidential elections. It was I just had the name, but remember the campaign where the furlough program, where they had the guys going through the turnstiles. Oh my God! I think that was a commercial that did him in. That was
Well, I think his politics did him in too.
Well, yeah,
he was so far to the left. It was unbelievable. Yeah. Look, that's what you have right now. Look, I'm a Democrat. Okay, I'm a conservative Democrat, and I had a religious leader say to me, "How the hell can you be a Democrat when you sound like a Republican?" That's because I'm a conservative.
Yeah.
But I'm mortified by people like Ocasio-Cortez, by Rashida Tlaib, by that whole gang over there. Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders hasn't held an honest job in his life. He's two steps this side of being a socialist communist.
Yeah, he's pretty far out there.
Yeah.
When you mentioned the two gentlemen that were presidents, that they volunteered, well, not only did you volunteer for the service, but you volunteered, as a local councilman for 9 years, including 2 years as council president, council assignment as fire commissioner. In order to learn with firemen and what they go through, you volunteered to go through the fire academy as though you were a recruit and you were the oldest person to graduate. You want to tell us about that?
Oh, it was a lot of fun. My wife, I was at a meeting and I said to the fire chief, "You guys are using words that I've never heard of. I have no idea what they mean. What the hell is a Halligan tool? Do you use that to open beer cans?" So I said to him, "See if you can get me permission to go through the academy." My wife said to me, "You're full of baloney. You just want to do it." She knows I like to do things, but I really wanted to learn. So they said that I could if the council gave permission. The council would give permission only on the condition that my primary physician and my cardiologist said yes. My wife, Sandy, thought it would never happen. I went through tests with both of them, and they both said, "You're fine, go ahead." I was in my 50s at the time. And I went. My partner going through the whole course was a teenager who was in high school with my daughter. And we did things. They came to me. It was a 16-week course. At the end of the first 8 weeks were classroom. The second 8 weeks were climbing out of windows, crawling through smoke-filled rooms and what have you. Yeah. And they came over to me and said, "Do you want to just, monitor the second 8 weeks?" I said, "If I do that, I not only lose my self-respect, but I lose the respect of every man in the room here." And I did whatever anybody else did. It was not commissioner. It was Bob, and I was a rookie fireman. I rappelled out of windows. I climbed on roofs. With all my gear, I went crawling through a smoke-filled room to find a body, which was a dummy, but it was supposed to be a body. Things like that. I remember going up a ladder to the third floor of one of the buildings that we used in training, and the kid in front of me panicked. He froze on the ladder. So I came up to him as close as I could. I put my hand on his waist, just tapped him. I said, okay, come down with me one step at a time. I got him down. Then I'm sitting up on a roof, and one of my firemen was the instructor, and he said, if anybody has a problem up there, let me know. So everybody else went down. I'm sitting and waiting. He said, all right, Bob, come on down. I said, I can't. I'm nervous. He looked at me and said, you son of a bitch, why didn't you say so? I said, because there was nothing to say, and I jumped on the ladder and climbed down. He used a few choice words to me. When I graduated, at that time I was the oldest graduate of the academy. And normally they sent out pictures of the graduates and what have you. They did not. That was the only year they didn't do it, because I was running as a Democrat for county legislature, and the Republicans, who had solid control of the county board, refused to do anything where they would have had to put my picture in it. So all the other guys unfortunately lost out because of that.
Wow.
I enjoyed it. I went anytime I had a monitor. Anytime my monitor went off that there was a fire or an incident in town, I was there. And I know the guys appreciated it. At one point, there was a major fire in a house, and they were running out of air. They kept coming out to change their tanks. I began to jackass the empty tanks back and bring fresh tanks to them. One of the guys came over to me after. He said, I just want you to know, the men noticed what you were doing. I said, I'm not doing it for that reason. I never actually went into a building that was on fire, even though I was a graduate and I was qualified to do it. It would have just not been appropriate for me as commissioner to go into a burning building.
I understand that, and I appreciate that. But what I appreciate even more so is that you readily acknowledged that you didn't get it, but you held that position, and you still wanted to learn.
Well, I had to. If I didn't do that, there was no way I could represent them to the rest of the council. When they needed a new fire truck to replace an old one, at least I had a working knowledge of what it was, and I could bring it to the council. I got the approval for 2 new fire trucks for them over the time.
Wow, that is cool. I want to
I had a little discussion with one of the former chiefs a little while back. They have a plaque on the side of the fire trucks. It lists the officers, who's the fire chief, and who's the commissioner. I said, when this thing goes out of commission, I want that plaque. And the former fire chief said, you're going to have to fight me for it. I said, anytime you want.
What was on the plaque specifically? Was it just
a dedication plaque. When the company that it was purchased from, it's a bronze plaque attached to the side of the truck. Yes. As I said, it's got the name of the fire chief, the officers, the fire commissioner, what have you. Okay. I had my name on there. I wanted it. Doesn't look like I'm going to get it, but I can want it. Heck yeah.
It's a tiny bit of trivia. It's not as much, but over where one of my work sites, I work for the County of Los Angeles, and my department is Public Works. And there's a building that was dedicated in 1941, and it has the dedication plaque, and it says WPA 1941. Mm-hmm. And it's a condemned building. And every little while, I keep going there and telling these people, when you bring this building down, blockheads, you have to keep that plaque, because it's off to the side, and it's just an old building, and it has asbestos, has a lot of stuff, and they're not going to. It's an eyesore, and I don't know what they're going to do, but I try to tell everyone, look, that plaque was here before, and it's going to be there probably when I leave. But when you bring that building down, you need to have, and it's a very nondescript plaque, but it's there, and it says WPA. It's really awesome. 1941. I had a somewhat funny incident similar to that. I belonged to a religious institution that closed because of a declining congregation, and we merged with another place. But a tree outside had a stone with a bronze plaque on it, dedicated to this gentleman who was a Superior Court judge in New Jersey, in my county. Mm-hmm. I went over, I knew him. I had the maintenance guy take the plaque off and give it to me. I had it laying in my office. It must have been close to a year. And I said, God, I got to send this to John. I put it in a manila envelope, addressed it to him, but I did put a return address on it. I got a call from him thanking me.
he said he almost panicked when he felt the weight inside of it. What the hell could this possibly be? Then he saw the return address, and he said, he couldn't believe it. But his parents had dedicated the tree to him when it was built. He was younger, and now I figured if I didn't do that, the plaque would have just gone somewhere and have been melted down or thrown out.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of people don't get that, and it's disappointing that they just disappear. And I'm glad you're doing that. I hope you get to keep that plaque. I'm hoping that they're going to keep that one, because in my yard, there's actually quite a bit of history. There's a rail line. It's actually one of the national rail lines, and it just leaves Union Station, goes east. But there's an old receiving dock where the trains used to come in, and soldiers, unfortunately, from World War II, their bodies were kept there, and other stuff as well. And the building was closed in 1980. Oh man, when was Northridge? Oh, 94. No, I take it back. No, it was before that. I think it was in Whittier in 87. But anyway, it's a time capsule. If you go into the building, everything is, from that date, I guess backwards, right? But the building's condemned as well, and I think they're just going to tear that one down.
Oh, that's a shame. When I was council president, we did the tricentennial of the borough of New Milford.
Yes.
And the mayor asked me to put together a time capsule. I went out and I bought two big plastic tubes. We had covers for them and what have you. We had a big celebration, took pictures of the celebration. My daughter had I think it was her son at the time. So he's 24 now, so the capsule will be opened in about a year. But one kid came over and he gives me a baseball, an autographed baseball. I said, "You sure you want to put this in the capsule for 25 years? He said, "Yes, it's got my name on it. Because when you open it up, I'm going to be a famous baseball player." Nobody ever heard of him since.
It's good, though. I like that. As a matter of fact, you also, actually, the image that I used for this program is you riding a hog, right?
No.
It's not a hog, okay.
I never had a hog. My first motorcycle, and it was a big mistake. First two-wheeler I had was a scooter, a 49cc scooter. I went from that to a 1200cc Honda Goldwing. It was way too big for me, too big a jump.
Oh, that's it right there.
Yeah. I believe that. No, that looks like it. That may be the shadow. I can't tell in this picture.
Oh, okay.
I think that was my second bike. But I was shooting up at Thunder Mountain. We went up, a couple of guys went up to go shoot clays, and the bike wouldn't start. I had it towed back to my mechanic, but the idiot who was towing it never strapped it down properly. It dumped twice on the trailer, and it got pretty well messed up. So I ended up collecting insurance on it, and I bought a Honda Shadow, a 750, which was a little bit better for me. And we went back up. Everything seems to happen at Thunder Mountain. Went back up there, and I turned too quickly and went into a culvert and hit the end of the culvert. Went down hard. Ended up in a hospital overnight. And I decided I wanted to keep riding, so I traded in. I sold my Honda Shadow and bought another Honda Goldwing. It's instead of 1200, it's a 1500, but it's a trike. And it's got the most beautiful airbrush paintings on it of Indians and buffalo and things like that. I'm waiting now. I've got to bring it over to have it checked, because it'll start, but if it goes into gear, it stalls out. I ride in a number of charity events. I started one called Responders Run, where we raise money for police, fires, EMTs, first responders, and military who are either seriously injured or killed in the line of duty. We gave a check to the family of a detective in Jersey City who was murdered by some urban terrorists. The 8-year-old daughter of a Green Beret who was killed in Afghanistan, shortly before he was due to head home. And a volunteer fireman in New York State who was killed trying to save elderly people from a senior citizens home. So we do that, and I enjoy it. But I feel we're doing something good and we're giving back. And I've got a great group of people working with me.
What are the names of both of them? Because in the notes that you gave me, it's the two motorcycle runs. What are their
The
names?
first
Because
one
you're
was
the founder.
first one was Warriors Run,
Okay.
and I won't get into why I left that. I resigned shortly thereafter. Half the board resigned, and the people who wanted to become president and run the show were now husband and wife, president and vice president. But I wanted to keep it going, so the fellow who was my vice president and I started Responders Run, which is what we're doing now, and that's the one I just described.
Yes.
You know, well, it's 501c3. Nobody gets paid. Most of us have reached into our pockets for more than anything else. When it came time to give a check to the family of the firemen, the volunteer firemen, we didn't have a run last year because we couldn't have a group with COVID-19. So he and I went into our own pockets and we paid. We split the difference on the check so that he could get a full check, and we gave it to the fire chief to transmit to the family.
Is this it? It's Responders Run Inc.
Yes.
Okay, folks, I'm going to put the link in the chat room right here so you can go over to it. It's on. I found it on Facebook.
We're listed. We're incorporated in New Jersey as a nonprofit, 501c3. Our mailing address is P.O. Box 1041, Paramus, Paramus, New Jersey 07652. Anybody wants to send a contribution in, we're very grateful.
As a matter of fact, I'm going to go to the page right now. Here it is. This is the one that's on Facebook. And here it is. Yeah, it's a 501c3. And there's a contact number right here. There's an email, folks. And quite a few images, which are really cool. So just recently, you had one in August, correct?
Yeah, we were supposed to have it in August, but we ended up with that hurricane that came up. It just absolutely blitzed us out, and we don't do a what do you call it, a rain date. But we still had some very generous donors who came in as sponsors, and I've got in my dining room, I've got a table full of souvenir shirts that we're going to have to hand out, and. A friend of mine who worked at the sheriff's department when I was the communications director there, he was an undersheriff. He founded Nom Knights Motorcycle Club. And he got a bunch of the Nom Knights who were going to participate in the run, and they all kicked in what their riding fee would have been. I met him at the place where the run would have been. They showed up and handed me a check for several $100s, which I thought was absolutely fantastic.
Yes. It's right here, folks, facebook.com/Responders Run INC. So you can take a look at it right there. Check it out. Ross comments, these events are incredible. And this is from earlier. Every time you say Thunder Mountain, he pictures you riding your motorcycle around Disneyland because of the ride Thunder Mountain. But there's a local ride for the fallen in honor of Michael J. Allred, who was killed in Iraq. So thank you, Ross, for sharing that. That's
I'm leaving for 3 months in Florida shortly after Thanksgiving. First time I'm going down for more than a couple of days.
Yes.
And I'm staying at a community. I had to go through day before yesterday an interview with 5 women over there checking me out. And one of the things that is prohibited is a motorcycle. I have no idea why. They say no 2-wheel vehicles. Well, I don't know. I said, my motorcycle is 3 wheels. Does that really mean I can bring it in? They just kind of smiled. I'm going to drive down. I don't think I would tow it, 1,300 miles down, but, whatever. If I want to ride, I'll rent a motorcycle down there for a while.
Okay. Had I been there in your spot, and if they would have just smiled, I would have said, "Oh, I don't hear a no." So
I was going to say that, but I figured,
Right. Yeah. Better part of valor.
I'm not going to mess with a board who's supposed to approve or disapprove me.
My cousin Patty says, "Hey, women checking you out is a plus."
Yeah. Okay. I'm not on the hunt just yet.
Fair enough. Yes, and I
Although
my my
my
cousin
ex
doesn't know. I apologize, Bob.
my my ex fiance lives within walking distance of the place I took. Her daughter is looking for us to rekindle the relationship.
Oh wow! Now Ross does say about your trike. He says, "Strap some golf clubs to it. Maybe they won't notice."
Yeah. Hey, I didn't think of that. I'm bringing my clubs down. The only problem I have with that is you may not remember, but years ago in the post office, they always had wanted posters
Oh,
up on the
I
wall.
remember. Yes.
Okay. If you go into any golf pro shop in the country, they have a poster up there with my picture on it, but it says not wanted.
That's good. I think that would be the same for me, but miniature golf. I actually played a round of miniature golf. I know that's insulting to you because you play the real thing,
No,
but
it's
for
not
me,
insulting.
golf
If you
has
saw
always
how
been
I played,
entertaining.
you'd know how not insulting it was.
Oh, you're funny, Bob. That is cool. Ladies and gentlemen, as our audience grows and we have more people joining us, we want to thank you. We are on Bob's time. He is in the East Coast. He's in New Jersey right now. So I want to, it's in the upper right hand corner of the image. His book is Spyder Hole. We did talk about it briefly. I want to bring it back to the fore just very quickly because many people are joining us now. And here's an image of the book. Look it up. It's Spyder Hole and it's Bob Nesoff and check it out. It's on Kindle. You can get the paperback version as well.
Well,
Is there a? Oh, right. I apologize, Bob. No, there's a different cover. Sorry. There
that's
it
a new one.
is.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter which one, but let me put it this way. Um, if anybody would like to have the book autographed, they can send it directly to me. I'll give you my address. Same price, $20 for the book. I'll cover the cost of the mailing, the shipping and handling. But just send it to me a check, $20 for Bob Nessoff, and make sure your address is there, and I'll get the book out to you by return mail, autographed with whatever you'd like written in it. And my address is 626 McCarthy, capital Carthy Drive, New Milford, Milford, New Jersey, 07646 1029.
There it is, ladies and gentlemen. This is the original one. You heard the story earlier why I have this one, but I've had this one since 2017, folks, and I enjoy it. I haven't had a chance to actually discuss the book with Bob, and I want to do that maybe in about a month or so. I'd like to bring it back so we can spend a little bit more time on the book. And I purchased a Kindle version myself because I was taught by one of our hosts because the author gave us PDF copies. And I tell the story because this is true. And since he was going to be interviewing the author, I said, dude, I'll forward you the copy so you can read it. So when we speak to the author, his answer was, no, dude, we support our guests. We support our authors. I'm buying the book. And that floored me. And I was like, yeah, you know what? I guess I should do the same thing.
Hey,
And it's true. We want more. And Bob, you mentioned secretly that there may be a follow up to Spyder Hole.
oh, it's no secret. I'm working on it. When I'm in Florida, I have to do two books in Florida. And unfortunately, because of my personal circumstances, which you're aware of, I couldn't get the work done. So the first book I'm working on, which will be done in about a week, is a history-oriented book. It's a local historical sites, and my county has got more sites on the National Register of Historic Places than any other county in the state. So we've got about 30 or 40 places. The other book I'm working on is going to be titled Mysterious Mike Malone. And I'm working with a gentleman, a retired doctor, who now was from Jersey. He now lives in Laguna Beach. And that's where I was just a little while ago. And his uncle, Mike Malone, was a federal undercover agent. Originally, FBI switched over to the Treasury Department, which was made famous by Elliot Ness. He had a couple of tragedies in his life. Two young children, one died, one was killed, hit by a bus or a car. And his wife kind of went off the deep end a little bit. She came from a very wealthy family. He decided all he wanted to do was undercover work. And he did undercover work for 47 years. He infiltrated the Capone gang in Chicago as Pat Lapito. He was Irish, but he was kind of dark, so he was able to pass as Italian. And he infiltrated Capone's gang as a gangster on the run from Pittsburgh. Capone liked him. They became very friendly. Capone got him a room right above his in the hotel he was staying at. when he brought Capone down, the two of them were in the courthouse, and Capone looks at him and said, "Well, I guess you got me." And Mike looked at him and said, "Well, I had something you didn't have." Capone said, "What was that?" He said, "A badge." After the Capone case, at the specific request of Charles Lindbergh, he and his crew were brought in to investigate the kidnapping. And they came up with the idea that ultimately led to the arrest of Bruno Hauptmann. And that was, what do you call it? Lindbergh at first was resistant to it, but they wanted to copy down all of the serial numbers on the bills that were being paid for the ransom. And they did find some of the bills. That's how they traced Hauptmann.
Yes.
He began using the bills about a year later. And when they got to his house, they found more of the bills and wood that was the remnants of the ladder he built to get into the kid's room. After the Lindbergh, well, he and Lindbergh became friendly. They used to go behind the house on Lindbergh's property and do target shooting, Mike and Charles Lindbergh. After that case was over, there was a show on TV called Boardwalk Empire.
Yes, I was thinking about that.
It was based on truth. Nucky Johnson was the crooked politician. Mike worked on that case. He worked on Dutch Schultz. He worked on a whole slew of them. Now, Marty Dolan, who is the great nephew in Laguna Beach, his lawyer has been after him to do a book for a long time because she's got contacts in television and movies. We'll see what happens. People have been after him to do the book. He turned them all down. I was talking to a friend of mine who was an undercover, a federal agent. When he retired, he became the head of the Chicago Crime Commission. And we were talking about doing a book on his career. And he says to me, you ought to talk to Marty Dolan. I said, okay, who the hell is Marty Dolan? He said, he's Mike Malone's great nephew. I said, really? Now, who the hell is Mike Malone? I mean, that's how undercover this guy was, that nobody knew his name. And the other federal agents had no idea what he was doing. That's where he got the sobriquet Mysterious Mike. So he said, call him. I can't call him. The guy doesn't know me. So my friend calls me back 15 minutes later. He says, Marty wants to talk to you. Okay, so we're talking. We had a nice conversation. And he said to me, oh, I come from New Jersey too. I said, really, where? He said, Bergenfield. That's 2 towns over from me. Yeah. I said to him, I live in New Milford. He said, New Milford? He said, you got the deal. I wrote the contract. He showed it to his lawyer. He said to me, I should have hired you for my legal work. The lawyer didn't change anything. Well, we signed the contract, and I already had an approval from the publisher to do the book. They don't normally do biography type books, but they wanted this one. So I signed it, and they normally do not sign a second contract when the first contract hasn't been done yet. But they felt this book was important enough that they gave me both contracts. So I'll finish the first one, the history book, hopefully in the next week and a half. And as I said, I'm leaving the country shortly. I want the book done before I go. Oh. And while I'm down in Florida, and before I leave for Florida, I'll be working on the beginnings of the Mysterious Mike Malone book, and the sequel to Spyder Hole, Shahid. So Florida's not going to be much of a vacation. I'm going to have to let my ex-fiance know I'm going to be working.
Yes. I think my cousin's being a bit sarcastic. He just explained who Mike Malone was, Patty. But the book will be available. So look, Bob, I'm rudely pin you down for a future date, because once the book goes on sale, we would love to have you on so we can talk about that book.
Yeah, both those books should probably be out next spring and next fall.
Oh, excellent. So tentatively, we already have that. That's absolutely awesome.
Well, I'll get you copies. I'll get you copies when they come out. But again, may I give the information for anybody who wants to buy Spyder Hole?
Of course.
It's a $20 check made out to me, Bob Nesoff, Nesoff. and sent to 626 McCarthy, McCarthy Drive, New Milford, Milford, New Jersey, 07646. Come out less expensive this way because you're not paying the tax. I'm going to take care of tax, shipping, and handling. And put a note in with the check as to what salutation you would like when I autograph the book. I will get that back to you. I'll handle shipping and handling. Not a problem.
And folks, Bob Nesoff, for those of you that know and don't know, there's still a few of the things I want to mention about what Bob has done, and he can regale us with that as well. But folks, he is on our radio channel, Blog Talk Radio. He's the one that does travel talk radio, and I asked him to do an interview with us last year, and he readily agreed. It was yours truly that dropped the ball due to COVID. So when I emailed him again, I was expecting Bob to say, "Yeah, dude, it only took you a year and a half to answer me back." But he did not. All he said was,
I'm a legend in my own mind.
Oh, that's funny. Oh, you told me that before we went live, and we were laughing. That was absolutely funny. Folks, you can listen to him on our Blog Talk Radio channel. He's done numerous episodes. And hopefully you can help me out with getting Dan to say yes. Dan's ignoring me on doing an interview like this. But I know that he's an early bird catches the worm type guy. Yeah, he goes to bed early, doesn't he?
No, it's my days as a daily newspaper reporter. I never got to bed early, and I never broke the habit.
Well, as a matter of fact, looking at that, you've traveled as a travel journalist, or you'll correct me on that, but you've mentioned China, you've been to Beijing, Hong Kong, throughout Europe, and I appreciate the way you wrote this, that you were in Croatia just after the shooting stopped. You appeared on BBC TV in London, you've traveled through South Africa, the Caribbean, the South Pacific, Tahitian Islands, and Latin America. Bob, 2 questions. Where have you not been? And then going back, if you had your dithers to do it again, where would you live if you could have outside of where you're at now?
Oh, outside
Knowing
of where
where
I
you
am?
travel. Yeah, obviously.
I don't know. I'm a born and bred New Yorker. I've been in New Jersey for more than 55 years now, pushing 56 years. I think New York is the most exciting city in the world, but I think if I had to live somewhere else, I might choose London. And I like the city. I've got friends over there. I'm not going to drop in and see Liz or Harry or any of the gang over there. But
No. Well, as a matter of fact, Harry's over by me. I'm close to him. Actually, I flew over him on Sunday.
Well, I know. I got a call from him. No, I didn't.
That was funny. That was good. I'm looking to head over to the East Coast either in October and then again after tax season, because I disappear from January through April, obviously, as I'm also a tax preparer. But I'm looking to maybe sneak in a trip to the East Coast sometime. Oh, well, no, you're not going to be there.
Well, I'll be back. I'll be back on the 22nd of October.
Okay. I don't know when. There's a fan program that's going to be filming. I don't want to say shooting, especially right around 9/11. It's not a good thing.
Not with the mayor of New York. You don't want to say that.
Oh, that too. Yes. No, you don't want to say that. But I'm looking to get over there for a weekend and then a longer trip after April. Because, folks, I'm telling the entire audience, Alaska Airlines, their sales are ridiculous, guys. I flew up to Seattle for $99. Unbelievable. And I'm going to San Francisco in October. Okay. And it's just inexpensive. And these even aren't the cheapies. These are the medium seats. So,
well, you let me know when you're here. And once, hopefully, Netflix picks up the movie and goes with it, I'll be, commuted to California.
Wow. Well, look, when you do return to California, we cross wires because I think when you were over here, Bob, I came down with an illness. It was not a good start to the year. Everyone who watches the program knows I came down with diverticulitis. It's been very difficult for me. and I'm still getting used to it. But in March, April, May, and June, oh, it was just not a good time physically.
I can imagine.
Yeah, I'm getting past it. And I'm sorry, folks. It's not about me. It's just I know that you and I missed because I didn't see any of your posts. You didn't see any of mine because, yeah, we were busy. You were jet setting, and I was trying to take money from the government via taxes. I'm sorry. I mean, prepare taxes for my clients. I apologize. I'm just kidding around. But anyway,
I think my computer is running out of steam over here.
Oh, yes. The battery's probably going to go. Bob, we've been on for almost 2 hours. I want to thank you. It's been a lot of fun.
No, I want to thank you.
I know there's more that in your story. Bob, you are a Renaissance man. You've done so many things. You have witnessed so many. In the conversations that you and I have had before, what you've done, what you've seen, what you've reported on, just maybe in the Ross, who's in the Utah area, I believe, or Wyoming. Forgive me, Ross, in what I call Middle America. Says it's a pleasure to meet you, sir.
Hey, Utah is my favorite place in the world to ski.
Oh, well, there it is. Who knows? If you head out to Utah, maybe Ross and I can meet you over there.
So you got it. You got it. Park City, Deer Valley.
Okay, well, there it is. Bob, you've been a witness to many events in history, and we just had an anniversary of one. But beyond that, what is that which stands out the most to you in your career or in your life?
That's easy. 9/11.
It is.
I went in on 9/11. I was the communications director for the sheriff's department at the time. And I remember saying to him, Gordon, we got to go in. We ended up escorting a busload of doctors and nurses and a truckload from the Passaic County Sheriff's Department with water and supplies because we knew what these guys were going through. We came into Vesey Street, and I mean, the smell, we knew what was burning. And this was only hours, literally hours after the planes hit the tower. Firemen came running over, gave us masks. We're standing on concrete dust on the street that was probably 6 or 8 inches deep. And I saw a brand new work boot. I wouldn't go over to it because I didn't know if there was a foot in it or not. And because I was able to carry a firearm and make arrests at the time, I was able to volunteer in New York on a number of occasions. At one point, they had me as security at the bomb squad. Another time, doing security with a group from Connecticut at the ambulance depot. I've been to the museum in New York. Anybody who ever has a chance to go see that 9/11 museum at Ground Zero, absolutely do it. And that's probably what stands out more than any other story I've covered.
Well, not only was it a story, but you actually were involved in the recovery of 9/11. I did not know that, Bob, and I thank you for sharing that. On that note, I do want to say that famously, I did not know this, but you were the first person some 30 years ago to call someone something. Do you know who that person is? Some guy that did Jell-O commercials or something?
No. Oh, yeah. My boy, Bill Cosby. My wife and I attended a show that he was in, and we were invited. Sandy and I were invited into the dressing room with him after the show. And he had a mouth like an open running sewer.
Oh.
We came out. I said to my wife, the man is a piece of crap. She said, what do you mean? I said, to talk like that in front of a woman that he's never met before was just absolute trash. My wife, Sandy, made excuses for everybody. And she finally admitted to me when he got busted, okay, you were right. How many years later was that? Unbelievable. The man could have been such an example, but not only for African Americans, but for everybody. He was the one who said, hey, you think people don't like you because you're black? You're walking down the street wearing your face hidden in a hoodie. What do you expect? Things like that. He could have set that example, but he couldn't keep his pants zippered.
Yep, and he couldn't keep that other stuff that he put in the drinks.
Yeah,
Couldn't put it away.
right. That
Yeah.
that's worse than anything.
Yes.
Worse than
Yes,
anything to
indeed.
drug somebody to have sex. Yeah,
Yeah.
and he got out of prison on a technicality.
Yeah. That might be another thing for another day. But
Yep.
Bob, I thank you for many things, not only for being on our network right here doing the Travel Talk Radio. Folks, check it out, blogtalkradio.com/NDB Media. And here's the embarrassing thing. Bob and I had not spoken for a little bit. He had asked me to contact him, and I did not. And like a bonehead, I called him today at about 4:03. And I called
4-0 inconvenience.
4:00 inconvenience. And this is something that I should have known. And it irritates me to no end because I've said over and over, the minute I go live, my phone starts ringing. I'm like, oh, come on. Come on, you idiots. You know I'm on air. Well, I called Bob, and he so graciously just immediately said, Roger, can I call you back? I'm on the podcast right now. I'm like, oh, shit. And I was like, bye. I was like, oh, my God. I know his schedule. It's Wednesday. It's 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Oh, my God. I can never take the high road ever.
Yeah, Roger, it happens. I think my computer is dying.
Yeah, it was. Anyway, we're good. We're done. Bob, I thank you for your service in
My
every
pleasure.
which way. You still have quite a few stories to tell, Bob, and I look forward to hearing them, as does the audience.
Anytime, Roger.
The
Anytime.
last comment was by Ross. Utah, there's a small resort, Cherry Peak, about 10 miles from his house.
I'll have to look for it next time I'm there.
You will. Bob, I respectfully. Oh, and the last thing, Bob and I are hardcore Yankee fans. That's our joke on Sports Talk with the Guys. When someone says Yankees, I have to kiss the ring.
I think they were winning tonight, but I'm not sure. I've got to check.
We're going to check right now. Bob, thank you. And ladies and gentlemen, we're going to call it. So we want to thank you. And we're going to be on, of course, on Saturday, Sports Talk with the Guys.
Okay.
And we have several guests next week. So we'll see you guys on the other side.
Roger, thank you and your audience. Have a great day. So all of you stay safe.
Yes.